fave, everybody. We want to welcome you to the Don't Be This Girl podcast. It's our YouTube, it's our Spotify, it's our Apple, all the things where Yvette and we get raw and real and just have some fun conversation about love, relationships, and marriage. And so today we're so excited. We have a special guest, Abby McMaster. She's also known as Kindly Abby on Instagram. And Abby is a voice of wisdom, authenticity, and grace when it comes to navigating relationships with kindness and really intentionality. So we're so glad to have you here today, Abby. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, we're so excited to have you. And so I was introduced to Abby through Yvette. Tell us, ladies, how did you meet?
Well, it's actually such a fun story. So we were actually at a conference together, and I had trained on stage and went to the bathroom. I think it was the next day actually. And Yvette happened to be in there. She complimented my skirt that I had on, and we just started talking from there. So we literally met in the bathroom.
In the bathroom. It's a normal thing.
Ever in the bathroom.
Back in the day, there was a song called Meeting in the Ladies' Room.
There you go.
That's our theme song. That's our theme song.
Yeah. So now when y'all talk or meet up, yes.
When we go on stage, we'll come out to that song.
Exactly.
I love it. Oh, that is so awesome. Well, we're so glad to have you with us, and, for those of you that are listening, whether you're single, dating, married, or just somewhere in between, we're super excited about this episode because Abby really has many graces, many strengths, as you will hear. And so just get your cup of coffee or your little whatever you like to drink, and let's just dive right in.
I love
it. So Abby, tell us a little bit about your journey. Give us a little bit of backstory, who you are, what you got going on.
Well, so I'm actually from Erie, Colorado. So I have lived here a majority of my life. I was born in Mississippi. And so I always joke around and claim that I'm still a Southern belle, but I grew up in Colorado most of my years. I have been married for 20 years. I have 2 kids. I still call them kids, but they are teenagers, a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old, which is just mind-boggling to me. But I'd like to say that my journey really began back in 2012. And during that time, my kids were 3 and 5. And I was really looking for a way that I could start creating some extra income. My husband was in medical device sales. He did well, but unfortunately we were just in a lot of debt. And all of a sudden it was like, we were just having all of these stresses. So I wanted to find a way to even bring in just like an extra $500 a month. Lo and behold, I was able to do that, and it was amazing. And so ended up getting really serious about that business and learning about entrepreneurship and learning about having your own business and a no cap potential. And I got really, really excited. I ended up building that business over 7.5 years to the top 1%, spoke on all the stages, did all the trainings, all the things. And it was amazing. At that time, I felt like I was at the pinnacle of my life. Right. And then all of a sudden one day in 2019, they got us all on a Zoom to inform us that they were taking away a huge portion of our compensation plan, majority of it. And essentially we were going to have no business anymore. And that was a devastating time for us. And I like to say that that's actually where my journey began, because it took me a long time to get to a place where I had confidence again, and that I knew that I could do anything I really wanted to. So there's been so much personal development from that. It's actually really interesting to say that moment for me, as devastating as it was during that time, it's actually one of my biggest blessings now, because I see where I'm at now as a person, as a wife, as a mother, as a friend, as a mentor. And I would not be who I am today had that not happened. So it is interesting how sometimes our trials and tribulations end up being our biggest blessings.
That is so awesome. I love that, because I was going to ask, as you were talking about that, how did that affect your relationship during that time? And, what did you do to get through that time in your relationship?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I will tell you, it was hard for many, many people. I mean, from that, we saw so many people getting divorced and all of that. Thankfully, I will say, for my husband and I, we actually got stronger during that time together. And it was really one of those things. It brought us closer, and it actually made us really evaluate, like, what did we want to do in the next phase? My husband, he actually had left medical device sales and was doing that business with me 100% because I needed help, right? My business had grown so quickly. I needed that extra help. I called him my CFO. But I also think that was one of the worst decisions we ever made too, because he's such an incredible person and he's amazing at what he does. And I feel like he was almost, and I would say this with him, but he was living in my shadow, and that's not who he needs to be. He needs to be front and center. So again, during that time, it was reevaluating, do we want to do that again together? And for me, it was absolutely no. Absolutely no. I want you to go find your thing and you go be your best self. So for us, it was really as hard as it was, because trust me, I mean, we found ourselves back in debt again, because it's like, you've lost everything. Thankfully, we had a great savings, but that can only go so far as you're rebuilding things. And it just made us so much closer, and we fought so much harder. And again, it's just so strange. I'm just so glad it happened, actually.
What's so powerful about you saying that is, a lot of times you will see power couples do certain things and they have this like formula that works for them. But I always I warn people against things like that, because I feel like it's different for everybody, and so what you're sharing is like, you did it, but you wouldn't do that again. And so I just thank you so much for your vulnerability. It's really important for everybody just to take a look at what's going to work for us, but thankfully, you still were able to be so successful at what you do. And I love that. What would you say to somebody else maybe that's finding themselves in a similar situation? And, what would be the first thing that you would say if you find yourself in a situation where you have the rug pulled out from under you? Like, what is the first thing that you would have somebody do?
The biggest thing I would say, and I will say, I think this definitely helped our relationship, my husband and I, is communicate. You have to communicate your feelings. And that is something that's very hard. A lot of people want to harbor those and keep those inside because they don't want people to think that they're weak. And weakness is not a terrible thing. It's not. It's being vulnerable. And that's how you overcome things. So I communicated my feelings. I communicated when I felt okay. I communicated when I was really mad. And I communicated when I was really sad. And by doing that, I was able to get those emotions out and move forward. And so I would tell anybody who's going through that, you are okay. It is okay to not be at the most successful point in your life. It is okay. And I always say, God puts us on a path that we're supposed to be on. And sometimes we don't get that path. But sometimes we're like, Lord, that was not the path I was hoping for. But it's not our choices,
Right.
it's His choices. And so I usually remind people in those situations that it sucks right now. It does. But guess what? You will get through this, but you have to keep moving. You have to keep going. Personal development at that time. But again, it's okay to share all of your emotions and be raw and real, because that's the truth. And that's how you're going to overcome it.
That's good.
I love that. That is so good.
Go ahead, Yvette, because I have a question, but I want you to jump on in, girl.
Yeah, no, I just thought that was so good because communication is key. And I know a lot of the time, Cyndi and I talk about that a lot with our viewers and listeners, because they're, maybe younger women who are just coming into relationships and they're looking at, the hot guy, or they're looking at the successful guy, or they have a different list of things that they're looking at. And I always say that, listen, communication is key, because when all of that goes away, if you cannot communicate with your partner, there's really nothing else. So I love that you guys have great communication through that.
Yes, we definitely did. I mean, it's a blessing for sure.
No, that's so good. So what is something, because you have obviously experienced disappointment, what would be some advice that you would give to somebody like, oh my goodness, I just, especially like right now, there's so much devastation that's happening in people's lives with economy. And I'm just keep reading, like every day there's like layoffs of these huge organizations and companies. I'm like, what in the world? Like, what is going to happen? But, what is something, because you obviously have really mastered personal development. Like, what is something that you would say to somebody who just experienced maybe just something very devastating, whether it's with regards to their career or a relationship that's significant in their life?
Yeah, that's something, again, going back to communication, that would be a big thing. Express your feelings. It's okay. I would also say, and I tell everybody this, like, absolutely look for multiple ways that you can earn income, because it is a time in our life where it is uncertain. And I tell people all the time, you have got to prepare yourself because you never know what is going to happen. When it happened to me, I was just in Africa with this company 2 weeks prior to that on a huge incentive trip for top leaders. I mean, I'm talking like, talk about being blindsided, right? And so I would say to that person, like, just understand there's going to be peaks and valleys in life. And it's about how you overcome those situations. And so for me, I had to get really good at like personal development. I had to get really good at speaking affirmations into my life because I got really good at speaking negativity to me. I got really good at saying things like, Abby, you're a washed up has-been. I got really good at saying all those negatives that could have stopped me and truly just made me not have any success and just completely stopped me. And what's sad to me is I have seen so many people in that situation that never overcame it, never get past it. They're still living in this anger and harboring that. And so I would just say to somebody who's experienced that, I'm sorry, but guess what? This is just your new story. You get to create a whole new story. And what do you want to do? You get to look in the mirror now and actually ask yourself, like, who do you want to be and what do you want to do? Right. And so there's so many opportunities out there. Just always know that there's ways to earn extra income. And take advantage of that. I mean, I would say right now it's easier than ever to do that with social media. Take advantage of that and prepare yourself. Not that you're looking for not that you're preparing for a devastation, but if there is one, you want to be prepared.
No, that's good. And I just, love everything that you're saying, because I think there are going to be people that are listening that might be in that situation where they were disappointed. They had a situation and they're still stuck in it. And it's like, come on, Yvette and I often talk about like, come on, don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be mean to yourself. Like, you need to be good to yourself. You need to love yourself. And I know even for me, I've just put it out there. Like, I've asked the Lord and said, Lord, please help me if I'm being negative or complaining or any, I don't want that. Even if it's under my breath, I don't want that in me, on me, around me. I just want you. I want to be lifted up and I want to lift others up, but it really, and it goes back to what you're talking about. It does take being intentional, and you really do have to develop yourself, personally. But
it's a lot easier to speak negativity over yourself than positivity. For some reason, right? There's two choices. We both have two choices. Right. They're equal, but why do we always tend to go to the negative? And that's one of those conscious things I tell people, to catch your negative thoughts. When you say them, catch it and turn it to a positive. And that was something that I really just had to learn how to do. And, like I said, there's so much personal development that can happen when you're going through times that you feel like it's devastation. There's so much personal development that can happen. And I would say today, I'm a stronger woman because of that. And, I really did I would say I've always had faith, right? I've always had faith my entire life. But I got such a stronger faith during that time because I knew that he had me. I knew that as much as like we might be stressed out and things are happening and we don't understand them, I knew that God was in control. And so I just let him take the wheel. Jesus, take the wheel. That was
yes.
Yeah, there's a song about that.
There is a song, exactly.
There's a song for everything, I feel.
There's a song for everything. Bathrooms and Jesus, take the wheel.
I love that. Oh my gosh. And so Abby, as you were talking about that, it just made me think of something that I used to say all the time when I had experienced some things like that. And I had experienced even just in life where I had such high expectations for something or someone. And I heard a lie. I'm going to call it a lie now, that said, lower your expectations so that you're not as disappointed. And I could just tell by the way that you're talking that you do not believe that lie, because you didn't do that. You've come out on the other side and your expectations are probably even higher now for, even what you went through. And I love that, because we need to be able to share that kind of expectation. Don't lower your expectations. Keep those expectations high, and know, as we are clearly all believers, know that Christ has you, that Jesus has you, and he's got your back, and whatever he has planned for you is going to be way better than anything we could expect.
Absolutely. And I would say also, like, lean into your faith, like really lean into that, because that is something that will pull you through. And that's, I would say, truly for me, like that was the thing that pulled me through, was just, I really leaned in and put my trust in him.
That's so good. Not too long ago, I was just really reading, like whatever's pure, whatever's noble, whatever's lovely, whatever is a good report, meditate on these things. And that's kind of what you're talking about too. It's just like even changing the things that you're focusing on and thinking on and being intentionally to say, I'm going to focus on and I'm going to meditate on this, not on the negative things, not on the lies, like Yvette is saying, like, wow, Yvette, that's huge. That is a huge lie. And I hope anybody listening right now, if that's you, that you hear loud and clear what Yvette is saying.
Let's say it again for
Do
the people in the back. No.
Right? Exactly. Exactly.
do not believe that lie to lower your expectations, because life really has wonderful things in store for you. But like you're talking about these peaks and valleys and hills, like, yes, that's a part of life, but we don't need to say, but because of the lows, now I need to lower my expectations and what life has to offer me. No, like listening to your story, it's so evident and so clear that there are wonderful things. So yes, this horrible thing happened to you. It blindsided you. And now look what you're doing. And now you're building up others. You're taking what happened to you and making your story a story of victory to bring hope and encouragement to others. That's so powerful. That's what we need to do.
Yeah, I've always said, I'm a victor, not a victim, And so for myself, I always, one thing that really got me through too was I wanted to be an example for my kids. And if they saw me curl up and they saw me, break down and not overcome, how can I ever tell them to overcome obstacles too? Because it is inevitable that's going to happen in life. And, one story I'll tell you that, I was so proud of my son because the other day he's a baseball player. He's a senior. He's been on varsity, for 4 years. And so when it came out to voting for captains, he ended up becoming the captain by 1 vote. And he was really upset. And he was really, it was a big bummer to him because that was something he really wanted to be, was a captain. And so I just said to him, hey, I want you to know that you're still a leader, right? Like that doesn't matter. And he said, Mom, I want you to know something. The word captain does not define the leader that I am. And that just made me so proud because I was like, that's a direct reflection of what he has seen in his home and in his family of overcoming things. And that, guess what? You know what? You can still, it doesn't matter about a title. You can still be that person to lead and get over things and move on.
Oh, I love that. I'm over here tearing up, seriously. Because that's exactly, as mothers, that's exactly what we want to see.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we want to hear from our kids, that we've been an example to them to where they come up with that all on their own when they're going through
Yeah.
something. So that's amazing. How exciting for him.
Thank you.
That's so good. And it's such a powerful mindset that we are not our situation. I think so many times people will build their identity based on a title, based on what they do, based on their income, what they drive, where they live. And none of our identity is any of that. It's just like, who are you? Who am I? I am victorious.
Yes.
I see all about behind you. I just see all these things about believing, and belief, and she believes. Like that's who our identity is. Like I'm a woman who believes. I'm a woman of faith, and so we have to, and that might be somebody listening might say that's been my mindset. I've put my identity in the things that I do and where I live and what I drive, and that's such a dangerous place to be because things change, right? These things are temporary, but we set our mind on the things above, not on the things of the earth. And so that's so good and so powerful that your son, who's still in high school, caught that.
Yeah. No,
and understands it.
Yeah, it was amazing when he said that. I was like, oh, okay. But one thing that you just said that really I wanted to just speak on a little bit was we do put our identity into the things that we have, right? And that was something that I had to really get good at. And it was so interesting that in the very beginning of me starting my journey in 2012, so much of my story for people that they related to me with was the fact that we had been in debt and I wanted to overcome that and we paid it off and the whole kit and caboodle, which was great. When that all happened in 2019 and suddenly, my husband decides to get into a career that's it's going to take a while to build it up, which now it's great. Thank the Lord. But, it was a long time that we got ourselves back in debt, and I didn't feel financially secure. And it was like, how much money do we have in our bank account again? And I found myself in a place, and this is ego, total ego, where I thought to myself, how can I go empower other people? How can I go help other people when I'm in a place of disgust right now? And that was so wrong, and I think I had to just go through that to like create that next story. And I finally thought to myself, no, you're actually becoming a better person, and a better leader, and a better mentor, because you do have another story, because you can relate to people so much. Because guess what? Most people come in and out of debt multiple times in their life. It does happen. And so not feeling like you're not good enough or shame on you, but instead going, I'm going to overcome this even better. And again, I've come out stronger this time. And now me being vulnerable and admitting that to people, they're like, oh my gosh, you were too. And it's like this me too feeling. And I'm like, oh my goodness gracious, how many times do we keep these lies in our head that we think that we're so different than everybody else, that everyone else has it all together and we just don't, when really we all experience trials and tribulations. And it's like, let's come together and learn together and grow together.
Mm.
Oh, I
I
love
love
that.
that.
That's so
So
great. And I
good.
love that you said like creating like your another story. Like there's always going to be another story. There's always going to be another opportunity. You just have to catch that vision. You have to see it and you have to believe,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
She
Mhm.
believed. You have to believe that you can do it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, like you said, just get caught up in, I'm not like her. I
Mhm.
don't have what she has. And that's the other thing in this day and age with social media and all the highlight reels, right? And social media, everybody thinks, hey, she's got it together. He's got it together. They have everything. They have the perfect marriage. And here we are going through a bunch of stuff in the background. But we have to know that it's just part of our testimony. It's just part of that. And I just love that, creating another story.
Oh, thank you. And social
Yes.
media is one of those things that it's like we have to be so careful for ourselves and for the younger generation to not compare, because it's just a highlight reel on there. That's it.
Mm.
That camera goes off, and do you really know what's happening in their invisible backpack? You
That's
probably
right.
don't. And so really just making sure like they understand that. And I try to be very honest. On days I'm crying, I've gone on camera and cried and shared my heart, because I want people to understand that, yes, I am a very positive person, but I've got bad days. We all do.
Mhm.
So
That's so good. I love that. I think that's so encouraging for anybody who's able to watch or listen to any of your Instagram posts or anything like that, or even just your story that you might be sharing on stage. So people need to know that you've gone through things. So it makes you more relatable. And then it also just gives somebody hope to say, wow, if she was there, I'm there. And if she was there, that means that I won't always be here. And let's be real, most people are, struggling more than they would like to realize. Most people don't have it. You have this one percentage, and I'm not a numbers person and I'm not a money person. So I do want to tackle money right now, because some of our excuse me, listeners and viewers are single women, myself being one of them. And it's like, sometimes somebody the other day I was in a conversation and they were just saying, they were kind of like, well, they're kind of homeless and things like that. And I'm like probably one or two paychecks away from being homeless. Like, don't look down on them, just because you have a roof over your head.
absolutely.
We don't know like what the future holds. And so, I just appreciate you and I applaud you in your vulnerability and in your transparency, because that is so important for others to know. Look, I was here, but now look what God has done as a result of me developing myself and really going for it and not allowing that circumstance and situation to keep me down as a victim, but as a victor. What is something that you would encourage? What is one way maybe that you would encourage a single person, a single woman, in like taking the step in the right direction to get out of debt? You talked about getting out of debt. What would be maybe one or two things that you could share with somebody who might be in that situation?
Yeah, I would say one thing is obviously look at ways, again, that you can create extra income. There are so many ways that you can. And so rather than staying in this place of being frozen and being like, I don't know what to do, I'm just stuck here, I don't know what to do. Instead, recognize and open your mind to opportunities and possibilities, because there are ways to create income online that can truly change things for you. So I would say that number one. And number two, I think one thing for myself within my journey that I've also learned so much, and I need to be more vulnerable about this, but I went through a phase, where we had the income coming in, where it was like, I wanted all the designer purses and the fancy cars and the huge house and all those things. And it's interesting now, like my business is actually bigger now than it was in that former company. And I don't care about those things. And so I would encourage somebody like that, like really get real with what is really necessary and what really does make you happy and bring you joy. So don't try to keep up with the Joneses. It's so easy to be on social media and see all these, people and influencers and all these things, and you think you have to be like them and keep up with them, and you really don't. That's not to say you don't like a nice outfit, and that doesn't mean that you don't like a nice purse here and there, but it just means that you really need to like take a moment and identify what's really important in your life, but then also create belief in yourself that you can go and do something else, that you can create another income. Because I have some of the shyest people in the world on my team, and you just help them come out of that. And so I would just say, look for opportunities and really identify what really matters and what really makes you happy.
That's so good. I love that. And thank you for sharing that. I feel like nowadays that's all I see is so much designer. And then I'm thinking, now, is that really designer or is that fake?
Well, that's true too.
Because I don't want the fake. It's like, if I can afford it, then yes, then let me have this and let me rock this.
Same thing.
But don't pretend to be someone that you ain't. Just if you can afford it and buy it, great.
Yep.
And still don't make that your identity, because you're not your purse. You're not the shoes. You're not the belt you wear. If it's a Gucci, then praise Jesus if it's a real one.
Yep.
But let's not, let's not put ourselves in debt and all this extra burden because we're trying to get something that other people have. That's so good. And I don't remember if it was you, Abby, who said that, or Yvette, but we don't know what happens. I think maybe it was you, Abby. You don't know what happens in that invisible pocket once you put your phone back in. And I'm thinking the same. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors either.
No.
You might think, oh, they have everything, but you don't know what's happening behind closed doors. They may not have the perfect relationship or marriage that you think they do. So good.
You know what I wanted to add to that, since we're talking about like, don't keep up with the Joneses. You don't have to keep up with the Joneses. My husband and I talk about that all the time, because the younger generation is trying to keep up with the Joneses and finding themselves in debt. So, be very careful, as, a lot of the demographic that we have are younger women, going into relationships, going into their, their careers now and things. And it's like, don't try to keep up with the Joneses, because the Joneses have been at it for 30 years.
Yes.
The Joneses have been at it way longer than you have. So, we always joke about that, because, some of these younger kids have a lot of things. And I'm just like, but where's your house?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Do you have a career? Are you still living with mom and dad and have all of these amazing things? So yeah, keeping up with the Joneses is such a big thing. And we should probably do a podcast just on that.
Oh, you can talk hours on that one.
I remember years ago when I lived in Oklahoma, I felt like I wanted to do a reality show about that very thing. People that drove the right cars, owned the right clothes, all the labels, but like lived in a little tiny shack or place, I'm like, it would be wonderful to see like what the lives are like for those they're doing all of this, but they can't even afford to live, and they're doing it all on credit cards or whatever. But all these ideas pop in my mind, and then that was it. So if anybody doesn't, you take it, great. Enjoy that TV show.
That is amazing. I love it.
Don't be giving out ideas.
I know. I was like, let's learn about your secrets, girl. Keep those to yourself.
Thank you. What would you say? Because you're both married and you're talking about, marriage and newlyweds and things like that. What would you say a newlywed couple should prioritize in their first year of marriage, whether it's something personally or financially? What would you say to that newlywed couple?
Yeah, that's really good. So at the first year of marriage is always the hardest, right? Because it's just like you're coming together and suddenly it's like you're used to being by yourself and now you're together and it can be challenging. But I would say my answer goes for the first year, but your entire time. And that is make your partner a priority, make them feel special. And, I still love my husband as much as I did, when I said I love you for the first time 22 years ago. I love him more, and we take time to have date nights. We love to spend time together. And it's interesting for some people, that's strange because they can't wait to get away and do the girls' nights and all those kind of things. And that doesn't mean that I don't, hang out with my girlfriends, but I like to be with my husband. He's my best friend. And so, I would just say, really make your spouse a priority, communicate with your spouse and truly listen and understand where they're coming from, right? Instead of just being stubborn and being like, it's my way or the highway, listen to what they're saying and try to understand that. And that's the best thing I can say is just come together, make date nights so important, so important. Get off your phones on date night. That's not allowed. But yeah, and just, like I said, enjoy being around each other. If you don't enjoy being around your spouse, you probably shouldn't get married.
That's good.
That's good.
That is
is so
so
good.
good. I love
Yeah,
that. That's great
I
advice.
agree
I
with
mean, for
that. That's
me, right?
amazing.
Go ahead,
Yeah. Well,
Yvette. Go
first of
ahead.
all, communication, going back to communication, that is so important. Yeah, but it's funny that you say that about the date nights and things. I have actually been talking to a marriage mentor because there's been so much stress and things in our lives that we've been going through, a lot of, family death and all of that. And that can cause a lot of strain in your relationship. So I kind of went the extra mile to start talking to a marriage mentor, and she taught me something so easy and so amazing. And I was just like, why didn't I know this? Why didn't I think about this? And that was just taking care of yourself and having that self care for yourself,
Yes.
even as a single woman, right? Cyndi, like you
Mhm.
love your teas, you love your time, by yourself doing this and that. Keeping that at the forefront when you're coming into a relationship, when you're
Mm.
getting married, into the years that you've already got, been in, like 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Abby, 20 years. Yeah. So keeping that self care and how important that is, because if we're happy, he's going to see that we're happy and he's going to be more attracted to that
Yes.
rather than the complaining, tired, burnt out wife
Yes.
eating bonbons on the couch.
Exactly. Well, and a lot of times, I would say you see couples and it's like one of them is a dreamer and one's not, right? And you see that a lot. And so I would just say if your spouse has a dream, right? Don't shoot it down. Don't tell them no, like encourage them, be their biggest cheerleader as they're going through that process. Because that's something I see all the time with couples where, I'll be talking to the wife and she's so excited and the husband's like, no, you're not doing that. And she's like, oh, okay, my husband said I can't. And I want to say like, well, you are an adult. Your husband doesn't get to decide, right? Like, so I mean, but it's like they need to support each other. And that's something that's really, really important. And that we've done from day one is we've always supported each other's dreams and goals, no matter what.
It's
That's
so
amazing.
good. I do love that, especially coming from a single person's perspective. I think that's just really good advice to give to somebody like for myself, for example, 55, never married. And so should it happen then in this lifetime, then great, because we all know when I'm with Jesus, there ain't no marriage up there.
Exactly.
But that's so good to know to say keep that person a priority. And just knowing that right out the gate, that is so powerful. And I think that's so beautiful to share that with us because 55 years I've been doing things for myself, by myself, and so now it's like, okay, I'm going to have to shift this focus.
Yeah.
And I'm a priority to myself, but now I'm going to also now make this individual a priority. And I think sometimes when we see marriages falling apart or things, it might be because some of that was lost. They lost making that other person a priority. And the Bible's so clear, like to give preference to one another, and it's like somewhere we get in this me mentality. And I think it's so dangerous, to find yourself in that situation when you're married. So thank you so much for that. I love that. I know we're going to kind of wrap things up, but because personal development is really like, it's so big on your heart, and out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks, and you keep talking about that. How important, not only how important is it, but like what is a way that someone can grow in personal development? Maybe they've never done it, maybe they've never even heard the phrase, and now they're like, oh, personal development, what's that? What is a way that you would encourage somebody to develop themselves personally? Maybe just one thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in pick up your first book. Pick up your first book to start motivating yourself, and start really implementing the things that you're learning. There's so many books for beginners on personal development, and it's amazing how much it can change your life. For me, I look at myself in 2012 versus now 2025. I'm a completely different person, right? My heart is still the same. I still love the same, but me as a person is completely different. And it's been because of personal development. And it was because of that one first book. And so if you want to know, my favorite book in the very beginning is, well, I actually have two, is Rhinoceros Success, is an amazing first book for people to read, as well as The Slight Edge. And that's another great one also.
Okay. So
I do know the
Rhinoceros.
slight edge. I
Yeah.
do know the slight edge. I've never heard of the other one. Rhinoceros,
Rhinoceros
what was
Success,
it?
it's short, it's very easy to get through. It's great for a beginner, and it really does open your mind to like that positive mindset. You like I said, you've got to speak life into yourself. Every morning when I wake up, I have like a thing of beads, and I go around each bead praying around each bead and speaking life into myself and speaking what I want in my life and thanking the Lord for everything He's provided for us. And I do that every single morning, first thing before I touch my phone. And then I always put my hand over and touch my husband, right? And just make sure he knows that like I hear a connection. And then I always pick up my devotional and I read my devotional to start my day. And that's what I do every day. And it makes a huge difference because you're starting your day with Jesus and with positivity.
So good. So
No
good.
better way to start
No
your
better
day,
way.
but I would maybe add the coffee for me.
I go downstairs for that. That's like
That's after.
That's on the
Is there anything else, or Yvette, do you have any other questions that you have on your mind as we're talking about this, or Abby, anything else that you want to share? It's been so good. Such a rich time. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, you are so welcome. Yvette, do you have any other questions?
No, I think you've done amazing. I love how,
Yeah.
we've been able to speak to both single and married couples,
Yes.
newly married couples, and then you're 20 years. I'm, gosh, 11 years. I think it's going to be 12 years. I'm so bad at that, but but yeah, I love how everything is full circle with that. The personal development, the honoring your spouse or honoring your significant other, and how it just helps you to blossom even more so. So I just love that whole entire thing. And I just think it all comes together in a nice, pretty bow. And, Jesus behind all of it.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
love that.
At
Yep.
the center of it all. At the
Yep.
center of it all.
I would just tell women out there to just believe in yourself. If you see something that someone is doing and you want to do that, that's a goal in your life, you can do it, but you have to go for it. And you have to be coachable and teachable, and you have to do things and not quit when it gets hard. And those are things where, truly like everything is possible for you to do, but you have to realize that it's going to take consistency. And you have to understand that the person that you're seeing, that they have what you want, you don't know what they've gone through to get to that point. So you have to keep going no matter what, and believe in yourself, because I want you to know, like, women, it makes me so sad how much they don't believe in themselves. And I want to speak to women and let them know you are amazing. You are a child of God. You can do what you want to put your mind to, and just start believing in yourself. Fake it a little bit in the beginning, but the more that you do that, the confidence will come. And then all of a sudden you'll start seeing a different person in you, and you'll start achieving different things too.
Yeah, I love that. And I do have one more question for you, just as you were talking about that. How can you let us know a little bit about, women think that other women are catty, and that, we always have to be at odds with each other and stuff like that. And I know that you have a great team of women that you mentor and that you speak life into. Can you tell us a little bit about that and your friends that you're mentoring now?
Yes, absolutely. So again, it starts from the top. And so I'm all about positivity, 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 and communication. So if there ever is an altercation, we're going to come together and we're going to communicate about it with like as adults because we're adults, right? And so it's one of those things, you know, if there's ever cattiness or jealousy that comes in or any of those things, it's just redirecting their mindset, because a lot of times the things that they think, the things that are creating the negativity into their mind are actually lies that they created. They created those themselves. And so when you can break down what is actually the truth and what is real, it really does help that. And so I think a big thing, like I said, is positivity from the top, keeping it there, leading from the front. And then again, when you hear about those catty things happening, identifying them right then and there, right? It's never easy to have confrontation. It's never easy to confront something that is a little bit of an uncomfortable situation. But if you can do it in a manner that's not, you're not targeting that person. You're not saying you did this and you did this. You say, this is how I felt when this happened. This is how this made me feel. And that is a much better way to communicate with people. And that can cause just really no drama. And that's, I mean, I'm very happy that I really don't have drama, knock on wood right now. But if I did, we're coming together and we're going to work it out.
I love it. When I was getting my bachelor's, I read a book called Caring Enough to Confront.
Yeah.
And the terminology in that book, the entire book was called care fronting. And I've adopted that. I love that. And so I would say I'm right there with you. No, zero drama. I mean, things happen, yes, and people go through things, but that is not what I have in my life. And I'm so thankful and grateful. Now, in my early 20s, yes, that was a whole different story.
Yes.
But now we talk about things. We talk it through. And I want to pop up a couple of photos that we have of you here. We have you sharing and probably podcasting. And are these the group of gals that you're mentoring? Talk to us a little bit about what we see here.
Yeah. So on the left there, or my left, I guess, that was actually at our last company event where I was able to share on stage a little bit about myself, which was so much fun. I absolutely love that. That was one thing that I did in my first company, and I missed that so much. So it just felt so good to do that again. The middle picture there in the pink is actually, I'm at the founder of our company's house on his podcast that should be coming out soon. And then on the right is just a group of a few. We have a huge team of women that are just so incredible, but this is a picture of a few of them that we're working with and just who have huge hearts to serve other people, which is so amazing.
I love that. This has been such a beautiful, empowering time. And it's just so awesome to see like everything that's happening in your life and knowing that, yes, you were hit really hard, but like you took it and then whatever you needed to do to get back up and then to keep going and now empowering others and helping mentor and train and teach others to do the same. And you've shared so many nuggets. I hope everybody listening is like actually writing some of these things down, because even if it's just like this one little thing of like waking up in the morning and doing your affirmation and touching your spouse in the morning. I mean, all of those are little things that you just touched on. You didn't even go in deep in it, right. But I'm like, that's so beautiful, And so thank you so much for coming on here and just being a part. It really, really has been an empowering time, and for sharing your wisdom with us, your heart, your passion, all the things. It really has been an incredible conversation, Abby. So thank you so much. It's been awesome having you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun to get to know you ladies better. And I'm just, like I said, I'm so honored to be here. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for trusting the stranger in the bathroom.
You know what? God places all the time. And it was for that moment. So there you go.
That's right. That's right.
You see, and this is why we need to be open and not closed. Like that's a whole other topic. When you're out and about places, are you open or are you closed and just you're not seeing anybody? But that's just a beautiful indication to me of where the both of you were that day in terms of the posture of your heart, is that you were open. And look at now, this fun relationship is blooming, and now you're on our podcast.
I mean, it could not have been better.
I love that. Well, to anybody listening or watching, we want you to write down in the comments what your biggest takeaway or takeaways have been from this episode. Let us know in the comments. Please don't forget to follow Abby on Instagram. And for those of you that are watching, and my eyes are so blurry, but it's at kindly_Abby, and that's ABBY. But if you enjoyed this episode, please share it, like it, subscribe, all the things that we talk about. If you don't yet have mine and Yvette's book, Don't Be This Girl, then hop on over to Amazon after you've gone to Instagram and added Abby. That's the first thing that you do. Because there's a lot of wisdom on this Instagram. I'm about to do the same thing myself as soon as we hop off.
I love it.
But thank you so much. And you guys, just thank you all for listening and joining us. And until next time, just remember to be wise, be intentional. All the things that Abby shared, please do jot them down. And let's just look forward to an incredible year. Yvette's phrase is ringing true every day. And what is that, Yvette?
Thrive in 25.
Love it.
Yeah.
Let's thrive in 25. So we do love you guys so much. Thank you for joining and listening. And again, thank you so much, Abby, for coming on and being a part of our podcast. So everybody, Abby McMaster, and you guys have a blessed week, and we'll see you next time on Don't Be
This Girl.
Thank you for tuning in to today's podcast of Don't Be This Girl. To purchase your copy, visit Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or don'tbethisgirl.com. And oh yeah, don't forget to subscribe and share with your tribe. Stay tuned until next time.